Welcome to Marriage Unmasked. Today we are talking about our story. So we are actually in the month of our 20th wedding anniversary, and that has brought up a lot of things for us, and we're going to be sharing more of our story. We always kind of share little bits and pieces with you in the episodes, but we thought it might be helpful to hear more of the full story. Also, we want to share the healing part, but today we're going to start at the beginning. We hear from you all the time that our story really gives you hope. And that means a lot to us because it's not easy for us to go back and bring up some of these painful things, but we know that there's purpose in that pain. And so we share it because we love you and we want that hope for you and we want that restoration for you. We also want you to know that we're not coaches who took a course or we read stuff in a book and we're just kind of spitting that information out to you. We have gone through the fire. We have been in the trenches. We have been there. We know what it feels like. We tried thing after thing after thing, probably like you have.
Yeah.
And we share what really worked for us. We did the trial and error. We did the, failing this, failing that. This didn't work, that didn't work. And that's why we're so passionate about Restored and Refined and the other things that we offer, because in those things, we are sharing exactly what we needed. And we're cutting out all the other stuff so that it saves you time and effort, because it took us years to heal. It might not take you years, but a lot of that was because we didn't know what we needed and we were just trying thing after thing and, typical things that you try, and it just wasn't working. So anyway, we're going to start with our story. We're going to share it with you today, and we really pray that it is impactful and that you realize you are not alone. That's the whole goal of this podcast, is to bring real life stuff out instead of just everybody thinks everybody else has happy marriages and nothing's going on underneath. There are things going on underneath, and we want to bring those things to the light, and we really want to hear your feedback on this. So we're looking forward to that too. But let's start at the beginning. Adam and I we met in college.
Yeah.
That was like 24 years ago. So Adam and I have actually known each other for probably close to 25 years.
Yeah. More than half of our lives.
Yeah, which is crazy. But like some of the memories, like when we were kind of talking about our story a little bit here and there, it's like some of the memories are a little hazy and he remembers things that I don't remember.
Yes.
And anyway, so if he interrupts me, it's because he remembers something I don't.
She may interrupt me as well.
Anyway, so we met in college. I had gone through a really rough first year, just really unhealthy, like eating disorder, super deep depression. I got mono. I had to go home. I actually had to leave college and finish the year at home. And then that next year I came back. That was my sophomore year.
I kind of remember Cara like freshman year, and so I kind of knew of her, but we didn't really travel in the same circles. So I just knew her as this really pretty girl that was dating somebody else at the time and wasn't in my circle of friends at all. And then it was, sophomore year, I had a group of guys that I hung out with, and she started hanging out with some of the girl group that we were kind of hanging out with as well. And so she came a lot more front and center in my attention, like, oh, wow, she's over here now. Like, we're hanging out and getting to know each other a little bit. I was definitely attracted to her the whole time, like even from afar before. So she started to sort of like go on dates with some of my friends. And
they were asking me out.
They were asking her out.
Seeking these
no,
guys.
No, she wasn't.
This was really such a move of God, though. I just want to say that. The fact that I even kind of switched friend groups, just such a powerful move of God in my life. And just to throw my little perspective in there a second, I did notice Adam, and I didn't know who he was. He just seemed very mysterious to me, and I was kind of curious because all these guys were asking me out, and so he wasn't. And so I think that kind of made me a little bit more curious or interested in him, whereas I was feeling a bit overwhelmed by all these other guys.
Yeah, I was kind of going for that intrigue thing. I think I was kind of going for that, like trying to stay calm and aloof a little bit, but I was also, very confused about a lot of things as far as dating goes, and not very in my masculine, as we obviously have talked about many times. I had a little bit of an inflated sense of who I was, too, and a little bit of a pride thing going on, and I think that also maybe was attractive to some extent or came across a little bit more, like, interesting, because I was unique, and I knew I was unique, and, some of this. But anyways, we kind of hung out a few times, in friend circles, and we kind of started emailing back and forth.
Yeah, because...
Which is very funny.
Because, I'll tell you the story there. Yes, I was kind of being annoyed by these guys, and then I was just getting a little bit more curious about Adam, and I found out that it was his birthday, and so I wrote him an email. They had like an inter-college like email thing, and so I could easily find his email or something, because we still had never talked, and I emailed him just to say happy birthday. And that kind of started this whole chain of emailing back and forth, which we did for a full year before we even went on a date. Like, we didn't even talk. And I don't think in that whole year
we talked a little, didn't we?
I don't think we talked in person at all.
That's very strange. I can't even believe that.
No, I seriously don't think we did, because it was a very, like, it was kind of an immature.
It was a very immature-ish thing. It was. We were trading a lot of, like, jokes and just kind of funny things, and we were being kind of silly in these emails. It was a growing, like...
It was a friendship, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely, for, like, a year. And, yeah, I mean, I feel like we had to have talked somewhat in person.
I don't remember that.
Okay. So we were pen pals.
Yeah, we were.
Really. And then over the summer, we'd stopped emailing as regularly. And I kind of had found out that she was maybe dating a friend of mine. I wasn't sure about that. I could tell I really liked her because it bothered me that this other guy was showing interest in her. And I was like really hopeful that we could have a relationship. So anyway, after a while of this emailing back and forth, then, and there's a great debate as to who exactly asked who out.
Yeah, because here's the backstory behind my side of this, is that I went to a wedding over the summer. I was not thinking about Adam as like dating him or anything. I went to a wedding over the summer with my friend, my best friend, and as I'm seeing this woman walk down the aisle, I'm kind of like picturing my own wedding, and I had this like vision, and that is very unusual for me. And I see this vision, I believe it was from God, that Adam was at the altar and I was marrying Adam. And I was like, what? Like, this is crazy. And I remember even telling my friend Rachel this whole story because it was like so shocking to me that I'm marrying Adam. And so that really got me thinking. And I was like, man, maybe I should date him. And so from my point of view, when we got back to school, I remember finally being like, okay, we need to stop the emailing and we need to actually like talk to each other face to face. We need to actually have a date. And so I remember either phone or email asking him, like, let's go for a walk together. Because there was really nothing to do in this small college town that we went to.
Yeah, and the great debate is because I actually think that I initiated that conversation. And we don't have the email to prove it, so it could have been a phone call or whatever. So that is a great debate that will never be solved. We both knew we wanted to date each other. So it wasn't like a big deal, like who exactly asked who. Yeah. But I remember being the one that asked, and she remembers being the one that asked. So it's just one of those things that will go down in history as a mystery.
Yes. So then we dated. Our first date went really well. We felt both really comfortable. I was very nervous going up to it because this was such an awkward kind of relationship, like that we hadn't talked. And I was very nervous, but the date went really well. I felt really comfortable with Adam. And so we dated for 2 years, and then we got engaged. And after we got engaged, we graduated from college. Adam was going on to the seminary 4 years to be a pastor. I was going to be a teacher, and the college we went to, it was a religious college, and they basically send you to your first job. Like, you don't get a choice. And so I had told them I'm engaged. He's going to be in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Like, that's where, basically where I need to go. Like, we're getting married. Well, instead, they sent me all the way to Wyoming to teach preschool, which I was an elementary education major. So that didn't make any sense. And I was very upset about it. Anyway, so that's where I went, off to Wyoming. Adam went to Wisconsin. And our year of engagement was really rough. It was really painful. We were very disconnected.
Doing the long distance thing was really hard. It was really hard for us because neither one of us, we couldn't really just leave and go and see each other a whole lot. And to be honest, I was absorbed in my schooling, and I wasn't making it a priority to go out and see her. I went out and visited her one time, I believe, in that entire year.
Yeah, and I did go visit him, but that was because I was breaking off our engagement.
Yeah, we had some really hard times. Yeah. In that year of engagement. It was really tough.
Actually, I tried to break off the engagement several times, and it was that one time specifically where I was like very, very serious about it. Like, this is done. Like, I'm not doing this anymore. And so our church actually paid for my airline ticket to go to like figure this out with him. And we did. And we decided to keep going, which, of course, through our painful years of marriage, so many times it's like, was that wise? But anyway, it doesn't matter. That's the choice that we made. So that was really hard. And then we got married. We had a really hard day that day. Leading up to it, I was feeling very uneasy. I cried the entire service. It was just a very emotional day in a lot of ways, but it was also partly because I did feel very uneasy about getting married to him.
I really do think both of us had a bit of a gut feeling that things weren't 100%.
And we had some conflict with his family. But I mean, it was not a pleasant time. I did enjoy parts of our wedding. The electricity went out. We had a tornado warning, so there was no electricity. We could go on.
Yeah,
the stories are...
Yeah, there's plenty of more stories we could flesh this out
We
with.
don't have all the time in the world to share, but if we could, we would give you all the details. So our wedding night went pretty well at first. It was a little bit romantic, and this was our first time, and we were a little nervous, but we really enjoyed it. And then I thought it was fine. It wasn't necessarily enjoyable, but it was fine. I was totally okay with it. But then Adam had a little bit more of a reaction to that.
Yeah, I woke up in the middle of the night, and it was very much a performance thing. I was very much like in my head about performance. And so I just remember like getting up, going out of bed, and like staring out of the window of the hotel room and just looking down and going like, feeling like I'm a failure, I'm going to screw this all up. And so I went to a lot of shame for some reason, even though there was no reason for that. We were fine. We had a great night. We had a good wedding. We were connected. But I was already in like some shame and some insecurity there that was not helpful and wasn't setting us up for a very good honeymoon at all.
Yeah. And I woke up in the middle of the night and my husband's not in bed. And I'm like, where is he? And then I see him sitting by the window. I'm like, what is going on? And then he wouldn't really talk to me. I was like, I don't know what is happening.
Yeah.
But somehow when we woke up, things were okay. We were excited to go on our honeymoon. And then things just went way downhill after that.
We had a lot of expectations around the honeymoon, that it was going to be fun and connecting and exciting. And it was the first time I was out of the country. But what ended up happening is it was very stressful. It was very stressful to get there. We didn't have a lot of connection. I felt like a failure, like I'd planned a horrible honeymoon, which I really had. I hadn't planned it very well, but I also didn't know enough to really plan something super amazing and romantic. Like that wasn't really who I was. I didn't really know that.
So I think we were both just really disappointed. We both had unmet expectations. I was expecting something special. It's your honeymoon. I know he didn't have the experience. He hadn't hardly traveled at all, but he was talking it up so much that I thought it was going to be special. And it just was like every family vacation I'd gone on. And for him, it was special, and he was expecting it to be connecting, and so he was disappointed. So you're both just like really disappointed, and we did not know how to have healthy communication. We just shared in our episode last week a little bit about like when we got to the airport then and we're done with our honeymoon and how much pain we were both in. It was just really, really disappointing and discouraging. That just kind of started the whole like ping pong for us of our marriage, where it's like really deep pain, and then we try to bounce back, and then really deep pain, and that's kind of the cycle for so long. And so our first year of marriage, we get back to the United States, we move in next to his family. That didn't go very well. There was a lot of pain there.
They had expectations that they had, and then we had expectations of what that would be like.
So there was pain with the in-law stuff, and he was more into people pleasing and like wanting to keep his family happy. I think you had a hard time understanding like I am now with my wife.
Yeah,
like
no, I
am one with my wife, not with my parents.
Right,
still.
and instead I just kind of like stuck myself in the middle. I'm going to try to please both sides, and that's just never helpful. That's never a good place to be. But that is what I chose to do because I was trying to please everybody, which you can't do.
And then during that first year also, I was struggling a lot with depression. We were trying to get pregnant right away, and that didn't happen. And there was just month after month where I was so sad. And I kind of felt like I had lost my purpose as a woman. Like, I can't get pregnant. Like, my mom had 8 kids. And so I went into like a deep depression, which was really hard for us. Adam had never experienced anyone with depression. And then we had a miscarriage, and that was really painful for both of us. And we kind of grieved very separately. Like, I remember going for a walk by myself and just crying in the shower and crying alone.
I kind of buried it. I didn't really deal with it. I tried to move on without really feeling through what had happened. And I was doing that with a lot of things, like a lot of this depression, a lot of the pain we were having in our marriage. I was just kind of stuffing my feelings and trying to move on, trying to move on. And that was not healthy at all. It was just burying a lot inside of myself.
Mm-hmm. And we just had a lot of low moments. And Adam shared actually last week in the podcast too, where he got so frustrated, he punched a hole in the wall in our condo. And that was all the first year marriage. We decided finally to get some therapy. Yeah. I think it started actually with the depression. I decided I needed help. I didn't really want to go on medication right away. And so we went to therapy and we started to realize like, okay, there's a lot going on here.
Yeah.
And so she called in Adam and we had some couples therapy as well. That started to bring up some of the trauma that I had gone through when I was younger. And so we were starting to become aware of that a little bit. But it didn't really help us to heal the things that were there. And I didn't really know necessarily how to move forward in a healthy way. And so we just kind of stayed in a disconnected on and off. Again, that cycle of like, okay, we'll kind of get reconnected and then something painful happens again, and just kept going through that unhealthy cycle.
So after my schooling was over, I was assigned as a pastor out to a church out in Michigan. I had been training for this, and yet I struggled with leadership. I was already struggling in my own family to be a strong leader and to provide direction. And so now I felt this added pressure to lead a church. And our relationship was also suffering a lot. I was still stuck in a lot of people pleasing, which you can't lead a church if you are worried about those kind of things. You can't really lead from the truth. What ended up happening is, and we've talked about this in another episode too, is where there was a lady in the congregation that started to take issue with Cara for starting some exercise classes in the church. And I kind of got in the middle of that, and I was now trying to handle that situation again, trying to please her, trying to please Cara, and not really leading well and feeling like a failure at what I was doing. And we were obviously hurting a lot and in a lot of disconnection over that. And there was a huge loss of trust. She couldn't trust me anymore because I was lying about what I was doing and how I was handling situations in a way that would make people happy and not really leading through and not saying this is what needs to happen and doing it. And so if you don't have trust between you, it deeply affects the relationship. And she lost a lot of trust in me and started to view me very differently through that experience. And then I was also realizing that I was losing myself trying to be a pastor. I wasn't thriving in that environment. I was realizing I wasn't really serving God well, and I wasn't really thriving as a man in that situation. My personality was changing. I was getting even a little depressed. And so made the decision to resign from the ministry, to step away from that. And so mixed in with all that in that time period and with me resigning the ministry and all these things, there was a really painful conflict with my parents where there was some really hurtful, hard things said and resentments that came out from my parents towards Cara. And I did not handle that well at all. Again, rather than really protecting Cara in that and really being united with her, I tried to play this middle ground between my parents and Cara. And so that caused a lot of pain, not only between Cara and I, but also between us and my parents.
Yeah, and I think that was actually, for me, that was the most painful time and a really big shift in our marriage. Because things were hard before that, but this is where trust was like demolished, and I felt very unsafe with him from then on out. The lack of wisdom and the hurt that he contributed to the already painful situations with this woman and with his parents, that just eroded safety for me so much. And I think after that, we kind of went into more of a disconnected, tired, overwhelmed state in our marriage. We moved then, so Adam did resign from being a pastor, and we moved to Minnesota, so we moved again. And we had 3 kids now, and Adam started at square one with being a plumbing apprentice, so he's making minimum wage, and we have 3 kids. And
a mortgage to pay and all that stuff.
And so I got a job. I actually had 3 jobs then, as I'm also a stay-at-home mom and homeschooling my kids. And we've talked about this time in our life quite a bit because we were both in this very disconnected, overwhelmed state. He's working a lot, trying to provide for our family, but we are not making ends meet. And I'm working a lot. And there's all this pain then from those years before, which now you understand. Mm-hmm. And there's a loss of trust, and there's a loss of safety, and a lack of attraction. A lot of things came from those unhealed wounds there in those years in Michigan. And we didn't know what to do with it. And we still were trying here and there. And there were some fun moments here and there too throughout these years. It's not like everything was horrible. There were some good memories, but the overall feeling of our marriage was very painful.
Yeah.
It was very disconnected, and there was a lot of hurt there. And then when we were living in Minnesota, I also gave birth to our fourth child, which I almost died. I hemorrhaged so badly, and they had to take me to the emergency room because that was a home birth. Anyway, you almost die. And then I went back to work as a personal trainer the next week. And so that's when my body started to just really shut down. I had all this stress and all this pain from so many years of my life. And then now my body is just done. And so we had to walk through a lot of physical health issues for me as well. I had adrenal fatigue. That affects your relationship when one person has a serious health concern. That also impacts things a lot. And so that contributed to that time of overwhelm and exhaustion and disconnection as well.
Yeah, and so we were just in this survival mode this whole time. And then we were doing better financially after time, and we were able to sell our house, and we were able to move into another house. By this time, I'm making relatively good money as a plumber. Cara was doing well with some of her business. Even though our like financial outlook had changed, the underlying dynamic was still really much the same. So I was still not really leading at home. Cara was still running the household. I don't know what brought us into like some awareness, but it was in this time that we were starting to see stuff on social media, especially Cara was reading stuff on social media about the masculine and feminine dynamic. And we were starting to become somewhat aware of, I mean, we always knew roles of men and women and things like that, but this was very different. This was more like the energy that I was bringing as a man and my leadership and like how I showed up as a man in the household and Cara stepping out of her femininity and into masculinity and stuff. So it was kind of an awakening that was growing in those years about that dynamic and how we were living outside of that dynamic and how that was definitely affecting our relationship and our family.
Yeah, and I mean, I remember in year one going for a walk with Adam and saying, like, something is not right here with our relationship dynamic. Like, why am I the one making all the decisions and leading everything? And he just really didn't know what to say. And we didn't really ever get anywhere with that conversation. It was like, we didn't really know what to do about it.
Right.
And then it was always kind of in the back of my mind. And then during those years is when I started to learn more about it. We had talked to our pastors. We had done more therapy here and coaching throughout some of these years. And nobody was helping us with this. Like, this was a big deal. And so I started kind of learning some of it on my own and starting to realize that this is a very big issue for us, that I am kind of stuck in this masculine survival mode, and Adam is kind of stepping out of his role and in this more passive, checked out, people-pleasing role. And so then COVID hit, we have another baby, our fifth, and then we decided to move to Missouri. We decided to just have a big, huge life change. We don't know anybody in Missouri, but we decided to buy a bunch of land, start a homestead. We had only a few chickens as pets ever. And so we wanted to learn it all. We moved down here. And actually, this was a really beautiful healing season. So that was in our 15th year of marriage when we moved to Missouri. And that's really when our healing season started. We're going to do another episode on more of that healing journey and what that looked like. Because I think sometimes people think that, oh, we're starting healing, like everything's going to go better now, everything's going to be smooth. That wasn't necessarily the case for us. It was very beautiful, and we'll talk about that. Yeah. But it was not just easy street, not just like the straight line up and into paradise. So we will talk about that. We'll save that for next time. But that hopefully gives you a little bit of a picture of some of the things that we've gone through. Obviously, we couldn't get to everything. This episode would be 45 hours. But we hope that maybe you realize you're not alone. Maybe you realize that it's not just your marriage that's failed, that's doomed to fail. Because we thought that too at points.
Yeah, we did. And there's been a lot of people that we've worked with now that have similar stories to our story that we've been able to like walk through some of these same things with. And so, yeah, you're not alone. There are other people that are dealing with some of these same issues that we were dealing with in our marriage.
And we'd love to hear your feedback on this episode. Please rate and review the podcast. Send us a message. And if you are struggling, if you are feeling stuck, if you're in unhealthy cycles, please reach out to us because we don't want you to stay there a minute longer. Like, if we look back, one of the biggest things that we would do differently is get real help.
Yes.
Like, and we were trying, right? But we didn't know anybody who had gone through this kind of thing. If you see that there is something that can help you, right? If God is putting something on your heart to reach out, please reach out because we'd love to help you. So we're looking forward to hearing your feedback, and we're looking forward to sharing our healing story next week.